So we did the walk behinds here, but you also have some ride-on machines. So what's the deal on this guy? This one looks very different. I mean, this is kind of similar to the bigger one. I've seen ones like this before. Not quite this design, but this is a very different unit.
So this is our ES 1300. 1300 is 1,300 pounds. It is a lithium-powered ride-on scraping machine. All of our riders are built off of our patented forward slope technology.
Okay, what is that?
You'll see here in the frame, it's high in the back, comes low in the front, and that lines up all of the support structure from the back of the machine where all the work is
I can see that.
into the front of the machine where it's actually doing the work.
It looks like you guys got a pretty heavy frame on that too to kind of support.
Yeah, it's a 1-inch frame that puts a lot of weight way down low. It also gives the machine a really strong backbone where it matters the most, which is where all that force is generated from the rear wheels working into the blade where actually the work is happening.
Okay.
What we get with that forward slope technology is it lines up from all the work here through all this heavy support structure, and everything being in a line just makes the scraper much more efficient compared to other machines. What you'll see is a lot of scrapers, they're parallel to the floor, the blade hangs down off the front, all that support structure is actually above the line of force. It just requires a lot more weight in order to make it an efficient scraper. With our machines, we line up all that support structure. By having it in a line, we have a much more efficient scraper. So the ES 1300 is able to do the exact same work as bigger, heavier machines without all that extra weight.
When you say exact same work as bigger, heavier, like, oh, I got to imagine there's a limitation to that. It's not going to do what a 5,000 pound machine's going to do, is it?
No, there's certainly a place for heavy weight and high horsepower, but what you'll find is at 1,300 pounds, you'll get onto the same difficult ceramic job, the same difficult wood job, and this is a machine that is able to do that difficult work without all that extra weight. And where we've really had tremendous success with the 1300 is it can go places where those big heavy machines can't go, but it can do those same kinds of jobs. So if you've got elevator restrictions, or if you've got weight restrictions on floors, but you still have ceramic tile, glued down wood, difficult things to remove, the ES 1300 is an option to get a really capable scraping machine into those hard to reach places where the big machine cannot go.
So it's kind of a walk behind version of riders.
Well, it definitely gives you a lot more access.
Yeah.
So I've got guys that are now accepting bids to do work that they would always turn down because they couldn't take their rider. Now they have an option. They can take this machine up that elevator, they can put it into that condo, they can do that kind of work, and it's really profitable for them because they have the most effective, fastest way to do that demo work without tearing up all the floor, without using jackhammers. It's a lot quieter and less destructive on the subfloor.
Can you use this on like second, third story type of apartment complexes?
Absolutely. I mean, you're always going to want to talk with building managers, with job supervisors, and to get information on what the floor loading capabilities are. But this is a machine that typically can go anywhere you can go. We try to avoid wood subfloors just because there's too much variability, but working over a concrete surface as a subfloor, elevated work is no problem.
So you can do multiple stories. Ideally, it would be on concrete subfloor. If it's wood, you're going to have to really run it past whoever knows how the building's built.
We have guys that will work over wood subfloors, but it's certainly a risk just because you don't know the integrity of the floor. So keeping it on concrete is going to be a best bet. If you need to run it over a wood subfloor, we do have the ability to pull off quite a bit of weight. So you can see these side weights that stack on the machine here, as well as these lower weights in the belly pan here. With these weights removed and with the belly pan weights removed, we can get from 1,300 pounds down to 980 pounds. So
you're under 1,000 pounds.
You're under 1,000 pounds, which is going to be able to work over pretty much any weight-restricted floor. It gives you that option. So always check with building managers, check with job supervisors. If you have questions about this equipment, can you use it on the job, point loading and things like that, just call us. We'll be happy to give you the information you need. But this is a scraper that will get you into that under 1,000 pound range if you need it. But it's also able to do that hard work, the ceramic tile and the wood. A lot of small riders are only designed for soft materials. You can't do that.
You have weights on both sides, right? Side weights?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can see it's the same weights that stack over here. And then this is the same belly pins. These are just one big rectangular weight that slides in.
So let's talk about this battery.
Right.
So this is the battery, right? This is the whole unit?
This is the whole battery. Yeah, so it's a lithium battery built inside of this box. We've got a battery monitor here, so you can see state of charge and how much time you have left.
How much time do you have on a battery pack? It doesn't, I mean, how?
It's going to depend on how the machine is set up and the work that you're doing. But we see between an hour and a half and 3 hours of runtime out of the battery. And then what's neat about the 1300 is it has the option to be able to change out from one battery to the next. So we do have the ability to lock the battery onto the machine just for security purposes. Leave your equipment on a job site. You don't want an expensive lithium battery, easy to take. We've got the ability to lock the battery onto the machine. I can unplug the machine with these snaps here. Now the battery is free.
Okay.
So I can change out from my dead battery. I can go with a second battery that's fully charged. Install it on the machine, and then we're ready to go.
Okay.
Another hour and a half to 3 hours.
Hence the speed load
Yes.
stickers.
It's fast. We wanted to give it a name. Speed load is what we call it. Most guys running the 1300 are really happy with 2 batteries. So they'll run their first battery. As soon as it's completed, they swap out. First battery goes on a charger. They're running their second battery. They need a little extra runtime after that. That first battery is going to be approximately half charged in 2 to 3 hours. At which point you could load it back on the machine if you need a little more runtime. If you want to run almost non-stop, you get 3 batteries in your machine, 2 on the floor, 1 loaded. You're cycling through your chargers. You can run just about non-stop.
So it's kind of like a cordless drill.
It is.
Yep.
It's a big, heavy battery, but it works kind of like a cordless drill. Battery weighs about 90 pounds.
All right. Well, if you order extra battery packs, is it you still have just the same charger that the machine came with, or
So you get, a charger comes with every battery.
okay? So
that
you do
way,
have.
If you end your day and you have 3 dead batteries, you can plug all 3 batteries in and come back the next day, and you've got everything topped off.
Okay. Awesome. What's the lifetime on the battery?
So lithium batteries give you a much greater cycle life than standard lead acid style batteries. Our battery that we're using here, it has a 4,000 cycle life expectation. If you were to use the machine every day, draw this battery down, plug it into the charger, that's 1 cycle, it would take you 11 years. To get through that 4,000 cycles, so much longer battery.
Well, if it dies sooner than that, then what? I mean, am I able to get any type of partial refund or reimbursement?
There is warranty in place from the battery manufacturer. It's going to be prorated. If you get 9.5 years out of your battery, you're going to pay for most of a new battery.
So you're not just going to get 100% back, but there is a portion.
Unfortunately not. But it's 5,000 or 4,000 cycles, and that 4,000 cycles is an extreme amount of battery life compared to conventional lead acid, which has been the standard for scraping equipment for 20 years. So this is definitely a big step forward in terms of how long your battery lasts, how much you can get in return on investment out of this machine before you have to put a new battery in it.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else on this?
We've got a lot of neat features in our slide plate assembly.
Okay.
One of those elements is that we don't have any included angle in this blade arm. So when we load the blade holder into the front of the machine, everything again is held perfectly in line. That's for our forward slope technology.
Yep.
But also with that, we end up with very few replacement parts that get wore out. We tend to not break bolts at the bottom of the cylinder. We tend to not wear out and break any of these hinge pins at the back of the assembly here. And it's very heavy duty. Our slide plate on the 1300 is adjustable from these 2 big bolts here and here.
Right.
And this is an improvement over a lot of other equipment because rather than trying to just push a bolt from the front, we're pulling this whole assembly together so we have the full surface here holding it in place.
Okay.
So it doesn't slip. It's very, very sturdy.
Okay.
And then we can drop our slide plate all the way to the floor.
So it's not an automated dual lift, but you do get the same function.
Right.
You just have to lift it up and down
It's a
manual
adjustment. Most guys are going to set the slide plate here about flush with the frame, like this one is set up. So you can see here, this is the slide plate.
Yep.
The black piece here is the frame. Everything is 1-inch steel componentry.
Yep.
And with these here, this is going to be a pretty standard position.
Yep.
Let's say you're doing a difficult wood job or ceramic. You're going to drop this slide plate really, really low, so that way you can get underneath material.
All right.
Yeah, but you have that adjustment when you need it.
And then your angle, obviously, you got the hydraulic cylinder there to adjust the pitch of the blade.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can show you that.
So you can get almost flat with this thing. Now you can actually get a little bit more than flat. Okay.
Good adjustment angle range in the front, and then we also have a number of really great accessories that just make the machine more versatile for setting up for different kinds of jobs as well.
Okay. Like what?
Well, here. So this is a rescrape adapter. So I can install this into the front of the machine, and then I can keep my slide plate low, and then hold the blade at a rescrape angle without having to lift the machine off the ground.
Yep.
So this is something that we are really excited about because it's going to give an operator the ability to, say, put a razor blade for rescrape in their machine, and then have the angle that they want for rescrape and put only as much weight on the blade as they need. So rather than having to put, say, on a 1300, 800 pounds of pressure in order to get the angle you want, it has to have all the weight on it. And now I can put this as an accessory in the front of the machine, and I can put the blade with 10 pounds of pressure, 100 pounds of pressure, only as much as I need, which is going to extend your blade life.
That's because technically the machine can still be on the caster wheel, but the blade is already held at this 45.
Yes.
And then you can just lift it until there's just a little bit of pressure on the blade, and it's not off the caster yet all the way.
Yeah, and what has been kind of state of the art for a long time with scraping equipment is that in order to get an angle like this, say a high steep angle for rescraping adhesive or rescraping thin set, you have to put the full weight of the machine on the blade in order to get that angle. Well, now we can put the machine in that same, put the blade in that same angle and only use as much weight.
Can I see that on the machine, like what people currently have to do versus what this does?
So this would be like the typical adjustment to get to a rescrape angle.
Yep. So now this is what you're saying, like all the weight is on the blade because
the caster here is completely off the floor. All the weight is on the blade. Maybe that's too aggressive. You're working over a soft subfloor, you're on gypsum, you're on a mud bed, you're on something that can't handle a lot of pressure. Typically you're not going to rescrape over a mud bed, but the idea is there a soft subfloor that you're going to dig into with all the weight on the blade.
Okay.
And you have to do that in order to get this angle. So a way to avoid that is this rescrape adapter. So now I'll install my blade holder.
All right, that makes sense. Yep, I get it. All right.
So now I have even a steeper angle already on the blade, but the caster is still on the floor. And if I need to use a little bit of pressure, so I'm not digging in, I have the angle that I want, only the pressure that I need. If you want to use full pressure, that's fine. You can adjust the slide plate so that your angle is right, or you can just adjust the angle. But the machine is still very low. So instead of having the machine jacked way up in the air in order to get this angle, now it's down very low, which is a lot more comfortable. It's a lot safer.
I've seen that guys rescraping typically that machine is hunched way up high.
And this keeps all of that way down low, which is, again, it's a lot more comfortable and it's a lot safer. That machine is less apt to tip. If you jam the blade into an expansion joint or something like that, this is a much safer way to run the machine, and again, a lot more comfortable for the operator.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah. So that's the 1300.
All right, let's talk about the big boy.
This is our ES2000. The ES2000 is a 6 to 8 hour runtime, 150 foot a minute battery power force rating. So we're using a AGM battery in this machine, but it has a much greater cycle life than most AGM batteries. So we're going to see 1,100 cycles. Typical AGM batteries is 400 to 500 cycles. We've got more than double that. So you're getting a lot of life out of the battery of the machine. This machine is built with our forward slope technology as well. So you can see the frame is high in the back. It goes low in the front, and all of that support structure lines up all the way to the blade.
Okay.
So as you're driving into the work, all of that force being generated is coming right straight back through the frame. And instead of having, again, the machine kind of parallel to the floor, blade hanging over the front, and everything trying to compress, We lined everything up, so it's just a much more efficient scraper.
So same as the 1300 as far
Right.
as that goes. Okay.
So this machine, 1,850 pounds, which is quite a bit lighter than, say, other machines on the market at 22, 24, 2,500 pounds, but it'll do the same kind of work. Because we have a more efficient platform, we don't need that extra weight to do the same kind of work.
I got to imagine that makes a difference in logistics too, because this would be able to get most elevators. I know 2,000,
Yeah.
2,500 pound capacity, so
Right.
you could get this in an elevator then.
We wanted to stay underneath that magic 2,000. So at under 2,000 pounds, you have a lot more easy access to elevators. You don't have to pull weights off the machine. It's a lot shorter than other equipment that's on the market, which is comfortable for the operator. We're 27 inches wide, so you can drive it through a 3-out door.
So yeah, you can get it into pretty much any passenger elevator, or especially
Yeah.
commercial elevators, but even passenger ones.
Yeah, we have a lot easier access into passenger elevators than larger, wider, heavier equipment.
All right.
So in the front of the machine, we have an integrated advanced dual lift.
All right.
You kind of see our logo there. The advanced dual lift, I'll explain that here in just a couple ways, but I'm going to show you first. So we fire up the machine.
What we got going on here?
Well, this is our power connection, so you can
Okay.
completely remove the battery from the control.
Yep.
So it kills the machine. For transport, if you're going to leave it on a job site, you can just unplug that. No power goes to anything outside of the batteries.
And what's
This
the
is
other
the
one?
charger connection.
So there's an onboard charger.
Yeah. Yep. So we have 110 volt power. This is a receptacle for the charger, so you don't have a cord that hangs out of the machine that can get damaged.
Okay.
And then everything on this back panel is plugged in. So if it's time to replace your charger, you unplug this. You've got another connection on the inside. Your charger comes out one piece. Nothing's hardwired into the battery.
Okay. Can you run this off a bigger charger? Do you have to use the onboard charger, or if I've got like a bigger charger that can go fast, like a 220,
Yep.
I can run that off this?
We actually recommend it. So this connection is your onboard charger. This goes directly to the battery. So if you've got a 220 volt 40 amp charger and you want to use that on your machine for faster recharge, you can just unplug this, plug your fixed or your 220 charger directly here. The machine's going to charge faster. It's actually better for the batteries to get that 40 amp charge every once in a while.
All right.
So I'm going to demonstrate our advanced dual lift system. So we have an adjustment for the blade angle here. Then we also have, with hydraulics, the
Okay.
adjustment of the slide plate.
And that's pretty short too to have a dual lift in there.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because we built this into the frame of the machine. So rather than something that was kind of an afterthought or an accessory that's added onto the front of the machine, extending the overall length, putting too much weight up front, which can make the machine hard to control, we actually have the rear cylinder is built right into the frame of the machine. So instead of having this whole assembly out here,
Gotcha.
we've got it much more compact, which is, it's easier to control the machine. The weight distribution is better, so we can actually control the machine and the work better. We don't have to get the machine moving and then swing or move. There's enough traction in the back. There's not too much weight up front. We can steer the machine. You can actually follow a line in the floor while you're demoing, which is really convenient.
Yes.
Instead of having to line up on the work and just take a shot at it, you can kind of follow the work.
I noticed from the front here too, if you don't mind, like that's actually a pretty sharp front. So it's like you got a wedge.
Yeah, and that just gives you better access into corners.
Okay.
Or if you're working down a hallway, the machine doesn't have to be perpendicular to the wall just because of its width and rectangular shape. Our machine is wedged in the front, so as we're working down a wall, we can kind of take an angle, and if you can adjust that angle so that now you're running down a longer length, it just makes it a lot more efficient. And then also narrow hallways are hard to work in, so being able to run more in line with the hallway just gives you a better machine for that situation.
Like this actually looks like, I'll take a seat quick. You actually have a really good view of the cutting head from here too, so which is pretty cool.
Yep, a lot of equipment will have a large footplate that is blocking your view of the work. It also gets in the way if you're going to be working into a corner. So we have the ability to go from the corner of the blade here to the corner of the frame. We've got this line to work with right here, which gives us a lot more accessibility in narrow places.
Okay.
Like this.
Yeah, you can
So guys that
definitely have
guys that are
access.
working in grocery stores or big box stores where they have to demo materials in between the aisles if they don't move the displays. Now you can work underneath that little bit of a toe kick. You can work down the length of the aisle, and you're not worried about backing into things.
You mind if I try moving this? Like, is this a jumpy machine or?
No, we have very smooth controls. Our hydraulic system is much softer than other machines that are out there, so we don't have a learning curve where it's real jerky at first. Guys will get on the machine and they'll feel comfortable in as little as 5 minutes.
All right, I'm not gonna drive around much. I just want to see how slow I can move it. We got slide plate. Get the blade off the carpet here. I can crawl. I'm doing this with one hand. Wow, you have a lot of control, especially even one-handed. Let's try to see if I can get right out to that corner.
So you're driving on the caster wants to stool.
Oh, hey, that's only one hand holding a phone, so that's not too shabby.
It's actually easier to control than when you're up on the caster.
Okay,
Yep.
that doesn't bother me. So you said 6 to 8 hour runtime.
Yeah.
This battery gauge, is it relatively close? And some of these are way off, so is this relatively accurate or?
So we use a gauge that's just based on a 10,000 watt draw, which is the full amount of power you can get out of the battery. So from a full charge or at 100%, it's just going to count down on 10,000 watts power usage.
Okay.
So on a very heavy job, what you might see is that battery, the gauge is going to be down to 0 a little bit faster. On an easier job, it's going to give you a little bit more runtime, but you can trust the gauge pretty well. Another neat feature that our machine has is it gives you an amp draw. Right here you can see it's at 0. I'm going to start the machine. So here we are with cold oil, and the machine is going to be drawing 30 amps. As it warms up, this number will get down to the low 20s. But you can see the amp draw of the machine as you're working, which gives you a great troubleshooting function. It also gives you here, this 48 is the voltage in the battery pack. So if you're questioning, are my batteries good? Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? I've got a question. The operator can just look down and tell you that information, which is almost always the first question a tech service person is going to ask if you've got a question about your battery is, what's the amp draws look like? What is the voltage at? When you plug your charger in, the gauge here will light up. It'll show a positive number in the amperage, so you can see how much amperage your battery or your charger is putting back into the battery.
Okay, that's very cool.
Yeah. So another feature that the ES2000 has, which is interesting, is we have this cargo deck built into the rear of the machine. It has a rail all around the outside. We've got holes located here so you can tie it down, say bungee cords over the strap.
Okay.
You've always got these heavy accessories that need to go with your machine. You need a place to put them. So we just built this cargo deck right into the back of the machine. So put your transport wheels, put your blades, put your blade holders, put your angle grinder for sharpening the blades. But then also we have this with a truck bed liner. So it's durable. You can put this stuff in here. It's not going to damage the coating.
It won't rattle as much either, I suppose.
Yeah, it does. It does make it a little bit quieter. Our lifting handles here for removing the rear cover also function for holding a strap. So when you go to tie it down on a trailer in a box truck, you feed your strap through these handles. So it's a high point on the machine, which is more stable. It also kind of secures the strap. It can't slide off the machine.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. And we do have tie down pockets in the front of the machine
Right.
as well, so you can use chain binders or straps you can tie down in the front of the machine. And then at the rear of the machine you can see these D-loops here also, so you can attach straps or if you need to use a chain binder, so you can really tie the machine down well for transport.
Okay, so you can strap over the top, you got D-loops in the back, and you've got the big 1-inch holes in the front.
A lot of the functionality you need. You need to pick the machine up with a forklift. We just set the forks narrow, go from the back of the machine where most of the weight is, and you just pick it up from the back.
Okay, so the wheels are kind of the outside guides for the forks.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So So how about get maintenance on batteries? Are they easy to get to, or
Yeah.
you have to disassemble the whole machine?
Eventually, you own your machine long enough, you're going to have to do something with the batteries. So with our equipment, we can pull off side panels on both sides. It's the same. 1, 2, 3, 4. These screws come out. You have access to 4 batteries on the bottom. And then on this upper panel, there's 4 screws. 1, 2 on this side, 2 more on the other. We lift the rear panel off. And you can get access to every battery in the machine without having to do any more disassembly. So you don't have to remove batteries, unhook cables, take off chargers or motors like other battery machines have. We can just remove some covers, and you can test every
So
battery
you
in the
have
machine.
a side cover on each side with
Yeah.
4 batteries in each of those, and then 4 on the top.
Correct, yep.
All right, so you have a total of 12
There's
batteries.
12 batteries in the machine. Yep, so
Okay.
it's a series parallel system. We're using a T875 AES battery from Trojan, which is a fantastic deep cycle battery with really excellent performance under heavy load, which is something that not all battery manufacturers have. And other scraping equipment out there might have a 180 or a 200 amp hour battery, but that's based on a 20-hour rate. What that 20-hour rate is a very small amp draw, say like 8 or 9 amps. Well, this machine never draws 8 or 9 amps, so that number that it gives you doesn't really relate to what the machine is doing. So with our battery system, we get exceptional performance out of that 160 amp hour battery, but we also don't have recharge problems the way bigger batteries have off of 110 volt.
Okay, how about charger? Is it easy to access that? You mentioned
Yeah.
before that you can pull it out pretty easily, but
So the charger isn't designed as a replacement item, but if you need to service your charger, you've got an access panel here. And at the back of the machine, there are 4 bolts that hold the charger in place and 2 plugs. So you just pull off the access panels, the 4 mounting bolts on the bottom, 2 plugs, the charger comes out. You can put another charger in if you needed to. It's really easy to do.
awesome.
Yeah.
Anything special? It looks like forklift type of wheels on them.
Yeah, so we use a non-marking traction tire. It's 18 inches. It's a very durable, long-lasting tire. And then as you're working over finished surfaces, driving in and out of buildings where you can't make a mess, you don't want to leave a mark, we have non-marking traction tires. That's right.
Excellent.
I think one final aspect of the ES2000, which is really important, is it has a very low center of gravity. So a lot of equipment, it has a frame that's built basically at the wheel level, and all of the weight is above this line. So you end up with the seat height being higher, rear of the machine quite a bit higher, but a lot of that weight up high means they're really tippy. So if you're driving your machine in and out of buildings or in and out of trailers with a ramp, or if you're using it at that high angle, the machine can sometimes jump or wheelie. This machine doesn't do that. So we have most of our weight way down low, much lower on the frame than competing machines. So even if you were to tip this 2000 over until the frame touched the floor, you would want to self-right. So that low center of gravity is really important.
That's
Makes
a
the
lot,
machine
lot safer.
Yeah.
Last question I have on the dual lift. Is there any slop that can develop in these? So I mean, you have these 2 plates, and I gotta imagine there's gonna be friction and material that'll wear away. Will there be play in there, or?
So if you're doing a lot of really difficult removal after some time has passed, you're definitely going to develop some extra movement. That extra movement actually robs the efficiency, takes away from its ability to stay in the work. It tends to jump out of the work.
And when you say extra movement, I'm thinking like between this plate and this plate, there's gonna be play.
That's right. And what we have with our advanced dual lift system is these bolts here and here.
Yep.
They just take all that extra movement out. So they're captured on the back side, so you just need a socket or a wrench, 1.1/8. You can tighten these bolts up.
So you only have to do it from the ones, you don't need a wrench on the back side.
You don't need to disassemble anything.
Nope, so you just go from this side?
Yeah, and this
That's
is
cool.
and this is an adjustment that you'll make once a year maybe. I mean, it depends on the type of work you're doing and how aggressive it is. But as soon as you notice, like, there's some movement in here, there's a little bit of noise. You can see now on this machine, it's brand new. There is no movement here at all. It is really, really tight. And that's important because as you get into that difficult removal, all that extra movement and slop in the front of the machine is battery power that's being wasted and work that's not getting done. So we don't want to have that extra movement. And this is one way that we can keep that machine in perfect condition for the life of the machine.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think that's the whole line. Are any machines missing from this, or is this everything actually?
No, we've got our corded 1000 in the backdrop there. That's actually the machine that started it all. But we only had so much room in the booth, so we had to bring what was going to fit the best, which is the product offering we saw today.
All right, well, thank you.
All right.